Hey, welcome everyone to the From the Shadows podcast. I'm your host, Shane Grove, and with me as always is the little under the weather, but still super producer, Jason. How's it going, Jason?
I'm doing okay. I'm gonna get through this thing one way or another. And greetings to everyone out there.
Yeah, don't leave it. Just because you don't feel good, don't make everybody else not feel good by you not saying greetings. I mean, I think people really look forward to that every week, right? I mean, isn't that like Spock's "live long and prosper" kind of deal, right?
Yeah, I guess you can say it would be. Yeah.
Well, you know, as always happens in the podcast world, we fly by the seat of our pants, and today is no exception. We had a really great guest scheduled, and they had a family emergency. And so we're going to get that guest at another time. But lo and behold, another even maybe better guest fell into our laps last minute. So I'm going to introduce Jason. I've been telling you about this lady and how amazing the conversation I had with her was. She is a well-known psychic from Cleveland. She's a ghost banisher, which that's even cooler than saying she's a ghostbuster. She does not like to be called an expert, but we will shamelessly plug her as an expert because in this circle, she's more of an expert than us. Oh, absolutely. And she's also a Bigfoot enthusiast, which we know our listeners love Bigfoot. So nice. without further ado, the so-called don't call me an expert psychic, ghost banisher, and Bigfoot enthusiast, Sonya Horstman. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm putting that on my business card now. Thank you.
There you go.
You're more than welcome. And then I'll
be an expert, right? If I have a business card, right?
That's exactly right. And I think we've already established in a previous episode, the judge laid it on the line that in the court of law, whoever has the most knowledge of the subject at hand can be and will be considered an expert. So if anybody
I will tell you that if you did have a problem with ghosts, you would want to call me. You would want my number if you're in the Cleveland area or the mid Ohio area. It's not many people that you can call besides a priest, you know, or somebody like that. Like your ghost groups, you can call on them, but they don't do anything about the problem. So if I was to go into a court of law, yeah, I've got all kinds of experiences and expertise that I could present.
Jason,
sure.
Jason, I think that is considered a mic drop moment where Sonya just dropped the mic and said, "There you go, everybody else. I'm the to quote the great Chris Hahn, I'm the king of Cell Block 13." So
here's another way to look at it too. That, you know, when I put out my press releases and things, what I write is repeated. So as I say, so shall it be. You know, I'll write top-rated psychic or top-rated ghost lady, and then it gets repeated.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
The more and more I do, the more and more I show up at events, and the more and more I'm on radio, and the more and more my name's passed around. It's kind of like a bad commercial on the TV. You hear it over and over again. You start to remember. So I'm the lady. I'm full-time busy. I'm so busy with ghost calls all the time. My phone is. I didn't even check my messages today. I was just so busy with a lame horse and everything else I had to do. But I get calls every day. Help, I've got a ghost problem. And everybody passes their number to me, you know.
Right.
Well, unfortunately, the more times my name gets mentioned around and around, it just gets worse and worse for me. So, so Sonya, let's get into this.
Okay.
How did you discover your talent, your ability to do what it is that you do, that you're an expert at? Or I'll just go ahead and say it.
Well, I discovered I was a natural born intuitive, and there was a ghost in our house, and I was 5 years old, and on Christmas Day, everybody was gathered around, and again, this ghost was bothering us, you know, peeking at us, watching us, creepy. And I said out loud, "Why is this lady on the stairs?" And my mom scolded me and said, "There's nothing there. Stop it." And the ghost said to me, "You're the only one who can see and hear me now." So I was like, whoa, on Christmas Day, 1968, I was 5 years old. And they started to talk to me, and I understood that I could see ghosts and I can see these things. And luckily, I learned to deal with it as I grew older, what they were. I learned what they were and how to deal with them. And it just all evolved. I'm 58 now, and I've been cleaning houses and clearing houses and getting attachments off people for years. I think definitely since high school.
Okay, so I'm going to go completely off topic a little bit. But something popped into my head. So when you watched The Sixth Sense for the first time, how did that? I mean, and this is, I guess, a serious question. How did that mirror what you grew up, dealt with as a kid and grew up being able to do?
Well, I've also discovered that other people don't see it either. Like, I have a twin sister who does not see anything. And also I've been in a ghost tour, and I don't know how to answer that. All I know is that I've been on a ghost tour where not all of us saw it, but 7 of the 20 people standing there saw it walking towards us, this phantom. And we were all very surprised, and then it jumped behind a tree and disappeared. But then when we interviewed everybody, there was people standing right next to us who didn't see it at all. So I think some people have the sight and some people do not. Like my twin, she doesn't feel it, hear it, see it. She thinks I've got a weird gift.
And is that what you considered a gift, or you considered a curse?
Yes. Well, I've asked God to take it away. I am spiritual. I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. And I've asked God, take this from me, take this. And then it became like more apparent that I'm to continue it. Because the calls keep coming, and I'm stronger than ever, and I'm not afraid to come into your house and kick a ghost out. This is what I do. I help people who have ghost problems, and I steer them away from Ouija boards and black magic, and quit watching Zach Baggins and all this garbage on TV. And I bring people back to spiritualism, and we kick out these ghosts that maybe a priest has come in and hasn't been able to be successful, or they call the ghost group, like Ravenna Paranormal or Monroe Falls Paranormal or somebody, and they come in and they can't do anything for it. That's passed on to me. And then that's my responsibility, is to deal with it, is to get rid of it. I feel like I'm responsible, like I have to help people. It's hard for me to say no.
Well, so the lady on the stairs talked to you.
Yeah.
Okay. So is there ever been a time where you've gone into a place where a ghost does not want to be banished, and you walk in and they're like, oh crap. Like, they know what you're all about, and they know what's about to happen.
Absolutely. They run from me and they hide from me. They're usually theaters. Usually in the theaters, they don't want to leave. It's hard to get rid of something out of a big building or an old building. They see me coming, and they'll hide. I can sniff them out. If it's a small apartment or condo or a house or even a small apartment building, I can usually find them, and I bind them with prayer, and I summon and invoke safety of white light around us, and then I call upon the ancestor, hey, grandma. And then I say, hey, don't you see the grandmothers and the grandfathers there in the light? Look, be not afraid of the light. And within this, as I bind them, and they are like tossed into the light. And I don't know how else to simply say it, but this is what I do. And then they're compelled, and they are banished, and then I seal it up, and I put crosses on the doors, and I counsel the people what to do, what not to do, and I sniff out Ouija boards, and if there's a Ouija board in the house, you can't hide it from me. I can feel its vibe. I can tell it's there. It's very bad to have Ouija boards. But you guys keep playing with them because, I make money.
Oh, no, I've never. Hey, yeah. I'm going to tell you, that's a line in the sand that I drew a long time ago. And not because I knew anything, but just because there was always this, like, just nothing good ever. There was never like a movie that something good happened with a Ouija board. Okay.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it's not like, oh, we got a Ouija board and we won $1 million and there was rainbows every day and we all got new puppies. So it was always like, there's got to be something to the bad part. So I was just always adamant.
You invite a devil to play. Don't expect it to behave.
Right.
Oh.
It's not a game.
Well, I mean,
you know what?
The Ouija board is a portal, right?
Hey, that's a T-shirt right
Well, you're
there.
open. No, it's not a portal. It's a summoning game. You're summoning. It's not a portal game. It's a summoning.
Okay.
So whatever is around that hears the summon comes towards you. Now remember, this is earthbound spirits. These are not. Nobody is holy enough or badass enough to call something from another side. I'm sorry, these people who think they can.
Okay.
Anything that's here earthbound can be summoned towards you, but not something that's crossed over. That's like God summoning or an angel summoning. No, humans just can't summon stuff. And they're fooling themselves that they think they can. But the earthbound spirits and the stuff that decide to stay here and do not cross over, the ones that stay here, they can be very troublesome. And the Ouija boards are all about summoning. There's
plenty of evil. There's plenty of evil here. We don't need to bring it from somewhere else. Yeah.
Sure.
So, Sonya, I have a question. Well, number one, it's to me, it's very fascinating. You have a twin, and she does not have any psychic ability that she's aware of. And usually it works just the opposite. Usually twins have some type of a bonding, whether it's mental bonding or something. But
do you guys have a bond between each other?
Well, let me explain the type of twins we are.
Okay.
I was born June 6th.
Okay.
Okay. In the 6th hour in a full moon. She was born the following year on June 5th. So we're 1 day less than a year apart. I was born with jet black, long hair, with blue eyes, riding motorcycles and men and wild horses,
Mm-hmm.
And she was born bald, blonde, brown-eyed, playing with dollies and learned how to sew. She played with dollies and Barbies, and I was out tracking critters with my handmade bow or something. We're total opposites. They call us twins because we're less than a year apart.
Yeah. Okay.
Ah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're Gemini twins. So.
Yeah, and another question I had was about these Ouija boards. The way I'm understanding it from you, correct me if I'm wrong, but if it's for an earthbound spirit, that's really what's around here, and then you would be summoning that spirit. So when people claim to get on the Ouija board and try to get a recently passed relative or something like that, they really don't know who they're getting. It's just whatever happens to be around at the time, right?
Yes, because a bad spirit or an evil spirit or something with malintent would pretend to be something that reminded them of their grandmother or their grandfather that's passed. Could even be something that's been following you around, and all of a sudden now it's time to swoop in and pretend like you're the dead person. And because if they've been following you and near you, they would know personal things about you.
Yeah,
so then they could whisper to the psychic, or they could whisper to the psychic or the medium, and whisper things. I don't always trust all the spirits that whisper to me, especially if I can't see them.
Right.
If they hide and just talk to me, I don't trust them. If they come in front of me and I can describe them and focus on their figure, most often that's a good spirit. The bad ones tend to hide from you. They don't show themselves, or they'll show themselves in like a childlike spirit, which would be not as intimidating as an old crazy lady with with a weird face. But yeah, I help people get rid of ghosts. I mean, people will have, I have a 99% rate of success, but I do have this one case in Parma, which I won't name. And boy, it's been 3 years now. And the last time I finally did the last, most successful one, she hasn't called me over in a while. We had a shaman priest. We had like a shaman priest and me and a demonologist from Rhode Island that called in. Mm-hmm. So we were finally able to really kick out the bad ones. And now she says, well, what's there is not as bad as the nasty one. She says, but that was the one instance in Parma I think I'm going to write about if I ever get these ghost stories together. That's going to be the intense one. We have so much evidence. It's just, it's almost unbelievable, the evidence. There's so much.
Jason,
it's amazing. Jason, we could make a movie out of the evidence.
Yeah.
Jason, please strike the term expert off the title. She's not 100%. Okay.
Oh,
I don't feel comfortable.
She's the real deal. That's good.
I'm a 99%.
So when was okay, so you're a kid, 5 years old, and you realize that you can talk. So how did it progress?
Yeah.
Did you just
how it happened,
stuff or what? Like, I mean,
yes. So that Christmas when everybody was in the room. I'm one of 8 children, okay, and I'm like the second youngest, and my oldest sister was 18 at the time, and she heard me talk about the ghost. So she pulled me aside after all the presents were open, and she said, she questioned me, which, number one, people don't question the kids. Don't lead them, because don't lead them into it. Just, I shouldn't have been talking about it. It brings more attention. And so she asked me about it. Then she said, well, listen, don't talk to strangers, especially dead ones. And I remembered that all my life. And then she gave me a prayer, and I will share this with everybody that's listening. I share this prayer with everyone. I learned this at 5 years old, because when I said this prayer out loud, it invoked the safety of the white light, and it protected me instantly. It was like announcing, and anything that was near me that was negative pushed away with this prayer. So I was very aware at 5 years old how prayer was powerful. I was realizing spirits, and I grew up pretty quick at 5 when I had a realization of all this. Maybe not understanding it, but the prayer goes like this. You announce out loud, the light of God surrounds me. The light of God is within me. The light of God protects me. Blessed be this light of God. And you could say that like in a series of 3 times in a row. And then things just melt away from you. They just are pushed away and you're safe. Then I can go to sleep and nothing would bother me. I could go about my school day without something tugging on me.
Yeah, because it had to be everywhere you went, right? I mean, literally like the kid in The Sixth Sense, where Ghost probably knew. So what I'm imagining is there's people that, and we had a little bit of discussion about it before, but people who don't pass over, spirits that don't pass over for whatever reason, maybe they don't understand why they didn't, or that they're still here, and they maybe understand that you can see them and they want to talk to you because they feel like you're going to listen. They have an
agenda or something. Yeah, they got that agenda. I think the hardest part for me is that sometimes when I'm driving on crossroads, you'll see dead people hanging around on crossroads, and sometimes they'll like try to jump out in front of your car, or they'll walk across the street just absently. And so there's been times when I've been like, step on the brakes, and there's nothing there, and it annoys the heck out of the people with me. Like, did you see something in the road? Yeah, sorry, because I sometimes can't discern whether it's real or not.
I mean, I'm worried about a deer running out. And you're worried about,
I think that I'm worried about a spirit spooking me, jumping out in front of me. Now, I think that when a spirit dies, it has a choice to cross over or not. And if it does cross over into the light, I do believe that the spirit, the great spirit of love, or people call it God, does not allow the negative human-ish stuff to come with. Like, all the negativity in the human is not allowed with the soul. The soul goes into the next dimension or heaven without, pervertedness or jealousies or mental illnesses or diseases or anger or evilness. All that is of the human nature, and it's not allowed with the soul. So the spirits that decide to stay here and they're stuck here, maybe they missed their funeral, they refuse to go into the light. Who knows, it might be a 3-day moment after you die. I don't know. I haven't died yet. And you don't cross over, then you're stuck here in the humanness. You still have your jealousies, your addictions, your angers, your unfinished agendas and such, your greed, mental illnesses and things. So those spirits that stay behind in this dimension with us, they become ghosts or earthbound spirits. And sometimes they're confused. They're not sure what day it is, what time it is, where they were.
But do them, for the most part, from what you've encountered, do they understand that they are ghosts and that they should have passed over, or do they just think that they're still alive in some sense of the word? And
like you mentioned, do they ask me, like they come up to me, like I think they know that I can see them, because all of a sudden I'll notice them and they'll notice me noticing them. So then they come forward. Some of them do, and some of them flee. Some of them don't want help. They have an agenda. But most of the time, so for example, I went to this lady grandma's funeral out of respect to the family. And while I was there, the lady grandma whispered to me by the casket, she said, "My money's in the garden." And I went, "Oh, okay, which one?" And she said, "All of them." She goes, "They're in metal cans." I went, "All right." So the family asked me later. I said, "Yeah, Grandma gave me a message." I told them what she said. Well, 6 months later, I bumped into this chick at a bar. It was a biker bar with a really good band. It was like a 70s band. And she ran into her, and she was all, "Oh, man, because of you, we found all these coins in the garden. We took a metal detector and found all the money." And I'm like, "And nobody called me for a reward?" She goes, "We found over $50,000 in silver in the garden."
Oh, my goodness.
And I said, "Well, you better play Grandma. You better go tell Grandma. You better go to the grave and tell her so she can rest now, because I bet she's still a ghost." She was like worried about that money. Because Grandma was worried about that money.
Because the kids didn't know. Because the kids didn't know where it was.
They didn't know. But you think the bitch could have bought me a beer or anything? Like,
So,
you think she could offer me anything? Hey.
Alrighty. Hey, so, Sonya, do these?
Needless to say, I don't go to funerals and do that no more. But I could have researched where she was and where she lived, and
you could
got my own metal detector, because I'm sure the house was for sale and everything else. But I'm not greedy, and I would never steal from the dead that way. That would be really bad juju. Right. So I wouldn't do that.
Hey, listen, you just gave me an idea for a great movie. I mean, imagine you had that ability. Like, I'm thinking like a really dark character where the guy's just a miserable person, and he knows, and he gets the ghost to tell him that stuff. And he goes and digs up the money for himself, and then the grandma. So he's miserable because then the grandma is in his ear for eternity, going, "Give that money back, and he can't." You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Well, that's what a haunting is about. That's what a haunting is about. It's about a disgruntled spirit.
Right.
Yeah. So this guy just lives his life taking advantage of being able to talk to ghosts and ripping people off. And he just is and he's just continually tormented. And
I'll be the authentic the authentic psychics in the movie character.
There you go. Like, and call him out and say, I know what you're doing.
I know what you did.
How do you know what I'm doing? Because all these ghosts are around you, and they're yelling at me to get, All right, I'm taking notes right now. Everybody's
there
going.
He goes. He's getting all excited.
Here we go. That's a terrible movie idea.
So
I like the idea of him being haunted. I like the idea of him being haunted, and then coming and get me to get him.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, hey Sonya, have you ever ran into a situation where the ghosts have kind of like told you why they're there, or do they really don't know, or was it something that maybe that was going on with them at the time of their death that they just couldn't cross over?
Yes, absolutely, sure, of course. I mean, I've got all kinds of stories to tell, and I will tell you a story about a guy who loves Sarah. This is one of my ghost stories. I'm actually going to write it. I have the story written. I just have to have it edited. Mm-hmm. Manuscript will get finished someday, but this family moved into this house, and they kept experiencing this ghost that kept getting louder and louder. And pretty soon everybody was up into the bedroom together, and they heard all the crashing and noises. And when they wake up in the morning, as soon as the sun would rise, but they would find nothing broken. It was just like the sound of broken things. Mm-hmm. And then pretty soon he would wake everybody up. They all huddled together. Pretty soon you could hear him screaming for Sarah. So they got a hold of me. I came over because the ghost was just getting worse and worse. And so I came over, and it wasn't residual energy. It was a real spirit there, and he was looking for Sarah. And he told me that Sarah lived in the house. They'd gotten in a fight, and he went out the door and down the street. He was mad, went too fast around the curve, and crashed and died. So his spirit missed the funeral. He came back to the house, and he can't find her. And I'm like, well, Sarah doesn't live here anymore. He's like, where is she? Where is she? Sarah, I didn't mean to, he was trying to apologize to her. He was so frantic that he didn't realize that she had moved. So she had moved, and we figured out where she had moved. I said, give me the address. And so this is where she is. And, if you go there, or actually what I told him to do was to cross over into the light so he could hug her. I go, if you stay here on Earth, you're just going to be haunting her. You need to go cross over where you can go in her dreams and you can actually touch her and be near her. You don't want to scare her. So he crossed over, and I gave him the address before he left. I don't know if he found it, but it was symbolic of she's moved on, and you need to cross over, and you'll find her. Don't worry. Here's the address. It was symbolic,
Yeah, that's
not that he had like some cosmic telephone book or something. It was symbolic of you need to go. So stuff like that, they have agendas. They sometimes they just don't want to leave because they still have that human need of I'm important and I have this agenda.
Yeah.
They haunt for a reason.
That's wild. Now is that something you believe or have experienced, that somebody then once they cross over can come back to somebody in their dreams? Absolutely. The only presence I trust. If it's standing on the edge of your bed, unless they just died and they're standing on the edge of the bed, I wouldn't trust it. Like if you just died, I think that you can go and visit people just before you cross over. I think you can get a visit like at the edge of the bed. But if somebody's been dead for a long time, the best place is to maybe self-suggest that you're going to dream about them. As you start to fall asleep, self-suggest, oh, I'm going to dream about my mom. Oh, I'm going to see her in a dream. I'm going to see her. I'm going to talk with her. And it's a connection to them. They hear you talking about it. And so, yeah, they come to you in a dream. And you may not remember everything, but your soul will. You'll have that essence in the morning of just a touch of, I think I dreamed about my mom. And so I think we can visit people. I know I've visited some of the dead, and we've had weird dreams and strange dreams driving together and like a teenage, recreating some of the fun we had as teenagers. Driving and stuff. That's wild.
Yeah.
Now I want to go back to the whole driving down the road and the crossroads thing, because we kind of just like glossed over that real quick. And
yeah, that's one of my problems is I react to things in the road that nobody else sees. I see things. Crossroads is very common for spirits. So they, back in the day, they would bury a criminal or bury an evil person in the crossroads so that when their spirit rose, they would be disoriented, not sure where they were.
Oh, boy. Okay. All right. I'd never heard of that.
Yeah, me neither. That's interesting.
So,
well, I could tell you where somebody's buried in Chatham, Ohio. There is I think his name was Frank. He was, they kind of like lynched him and took his body over to the crossroads there and buried him. And he's on one of they don't know where, but on one of the corners of that crossroads there, he's buried. No cemetery would allow him to be buried there. So the family took him in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night, they dug a grave, and then they put because it was a crossroad, they had like firewood for sale. So they put a bunch of pallets down, put firewood over them on top of them, so nobody saw the grave.
Wow.
Buried in the crossroads.
So now, and I'm not trying to be funny, but yeah, I guess I am a little. So when you pull up to the crossroad and a spirit jumps in, are they like jumping in a taxi saying, okay, take me to Fifth Street and Vine, Fifth and Vine. And I mean, what do they do? What do they do? They're trying to get in the car to actually travel.
Well, I have to tell you, you actually have to stop and like open up the door and let them come in. I mean, you have to, if a ghost just can't attach itself to just anybody. I mean, they can't just grab on like the end of your bumper and fly along. I've never seen them like hanging on to a car. I've always seen them going in a car. So I think if you're stopped at a crossroads and maybe got out of your car and left the door open, something might come in your car. But if just driving through, no, I don't. I think you're pretty safe.
So what's the significance then of the crossroads for a spirit? We're a ley line of energy, and there's also above and below. You got your four directions, and you're above and below, and it can be, especially if you're buried there. I think it's just a directional thing. They're not human. They don't have bodies,
and they don't require sleep. So sometimes if they're wandering, they come to a crossroad, they're confused. So they'll kind of hang around at a crossroad and maybe wait for other ghosts, wait for somebody to stop a car. One of the reasons I don't stop at crossroads and open my doors.
Yeah, right.
Listen, you've sold me on the fact to not do that.
You can look it up. There is lores about what I'm talking about. They would bury bad people at the crossroads just because nobody would let them in the cemeteries. They had to put them somewhere.
Well, that also makes me think about the credence of when the old blues singers and stuff supposedly sold their soul to the devil at the crossroads. Why was the devil at the crossroads? You know?
Yeah, there's something to do with lore, some symbolism, of the directions and which way we're headed, and it's a ley line of some type of importance, if you will.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting stuff. I've encountered a lot of different types of ghosts. I've come across suicidal ghosts. I've come across murdered spirits. I've come across children spirits. Man, that was a hard one. I do these ghost tours, I take ghost walks. I take people on ghost walks. And by the way, my website is ghosttourswithpsychicsonya.com. And I escort people around the city. And there's this one intersection where the little boy had been told, like, you're not supposed to be riding your bike, and he didn't listen. He was about 8 years old. And he died in that intersection. And when he died, his spirit got up and ran towards the coffee house, which was a couple doors down because it had a lot of twinkly lights. Mm-hmm. And he was scared to go home. Now, he was not aware. I think he felt like the shock hadn't set in about, I'm dead. He just jumped off his bike and ran to the coffee house and ran in and was hiding.
Thought he was in trouble as a kid.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
He thought he was in trouble, so he missed his funeral. So what I don't do is I don't tell people the name of that child. All I say is, and I'm not going to tell you what year it is. I say, well, it happened between the year 1900 and the year 2000. I'm not going to tell you exactly because I wouldn't want my relative, like somebody talking about it's just too soon. What are the chances of somebody being on the tour that's a relative? And here I am talking about this kid's ghost.
Right.
So I'm a little bit cautious about when I identify spirits, and I needed to go release him. He was stuck in that coffee house. All of a sudden, this coffee house gets haunted by the spirit of that child that got killed in the intersection there on his bike. Got run over by a semi. It was real quick.
Oh boy.
And they only go 35 through there. It wasn't like he, was speeding. It was a normal speed and everything. The kid didn't stop his bike, went right in front. Crunch. Poor thing.
Wow.
And my worst ghost case, and if I offend anybody, I apologize, but it was about a pedophile. And the family is in counseling now because of what I told them. This ghost was bothering the children in the family, a 12-year-old girl and a 10-year-old boy. And it was like tugging at their pajamas, pulling on the covers, touching them inappropriately, leaving bruises in inappropriate places, and just couldn't figure out what was going on. And finally the kids were getting attacked and jumped in their parents' bed. Well, the parents were paralyzed, almost pinned down and paralyzed, and watched the children be touched by something. Really, they were frozen, and they got the hell out of the house. And of course they call me over, and this was a nasty, nasty ghost. And I didn't realize what the truth was until after I told them what he showed me. So they wanted to know who the ghost was. And I innocently enough just said, well, he's standing here and he's holding a soccer ball, and he's got what looks like a coach uniform on, a striped, black and white striped. They all started screaming. Here it was their grandfather, who they thought they were safe from. He was in prison for raping people, but they had let him out of prison because he was dying of cancer. So he went to a hospice home. Had he died inside that prison, he wouldn't have gotten out of the prison. Well, if you die in there and you choose not to cross over, you can't leave as a ghost. That's why prisons are so saturated. But they let him out. And so when he died in the hospice place, he came and haunted the family and started trying to molest the kids again.
Oh my
So
God.
this family was being molested by the grandfather, who was a pedophile, and he showed me, like, who is this guy? And I errantly told them who he was, and I probably shouldn't have, but they were like, oh crap, my kids are getting raped by this ghost of my grandfather. Like, great, they're all in counseling still. This family, I keep in touch with them, and they've been through a lot of counseling because they were basically being raped by their grandfather's ghost, and it was horrifying. It was just and thank God I was able to get rid of him. Thank my God, because
how bad did he fight?
I got rid of him.
How bad did he fight you?
Oh, he didn't.
Oh,
he didn't fight me. He recognized it was because when I called the ancestors, when I called the light, he recognized that he was finally, that he was dead. His time to go.
So even somebody like that. Okay, so somebody like that who is that awful in real life, and then that awful still as a spirit, still is going to the light and gets to go as a soul to heaven.
Yeah, and then there's judgment there.
Oh, then there's okay.
Yeah.
Then there's judgment.
And then there's judgment. Yes, we are all judged at once. Some of us are sleeping. Some of us think there's a judgment. I don't know. I mean, I don't have like a direct telephone to God and ask him to interview him what's going on. But my sense is that there's going to be a judgment all at once, and then some of us are going to make it and some of us aren't. And I think that there is such a thing as reincarnation, that you get to go through your spiritual steps and attainments and atonements. And if you don't get it right, you get to maybe come back again, and try to get it right. Until judgment comes, I think humans are allowed to come back and do it over and go over again, because God's compassionate.
Wow.
So he allows us to keep coming back and trying to make sure we get our spiritual steps in. One lifetime we're poor, one lifetime we're rich, one lifetime we're decrepit, one lifetime we're beautiful, athletic, one lifetime true love, many kids, one lifetime no kids. Just different aspects of being a human. Does your heart stay true to God? Are you still spiritual and still, of God? I think that we all are judged by our heart and our works, but the bad people, I think they are the ones that actually have to come back and do it again. It's almost like, oh, great, I got to do it again. You screwed up. You have to start over.
So so explain to me and Jason, because he used to work in a prison, and our listeners, why, if you die in real life in prison and you choose not to cross over, why do you get stuck in prison?
Because I think that those kind of ghosts, those kind of people are not allowed to roam around the neighborhood or earth. If they die in a prison and they choose not to cross over, it's as if their spiritual guards keeping them there till judgment. That they have to cross over into the light, or they stay in that prison. They're not allowed to roam the neighborhood. Can you imagine if the ghost of Charles Manson got out, or the ghost of Ted Bundy got out, or John Wayne Gacy? What a nightmare if those kinds could walk around.
Yeah, if they didn't.
I think that there's so many. When I go to, I've been to Mansfield Prison and I've been to Mounds Hill Prison, and they're saturated. There's so many. It's almost hard to count. They're just in there. There's so many in there. There must be a reason why they're detained there. They're not allowed to leave. That's what I'm told. They're not allowed to leave. They're still imprisoned.
That's very interesting, because Jason and I have spent a lot of time in Mansfield Prison, and I know sometimes it feels really creepy in that joint.
Oh yeah,
and we're not. And that was another thing I wanted to ask, is because. So, is there an instance where are you either able to see ghosts or not, or sometimes you can and sometimes you can't? You know what I'm saying? Is there just a definitive, you either can or can't, or are you a person that maybe sometimes, but not all the time, can experience that?
Pardon me. I would say it depends. Sometimes they hide from me and they won't show themselves to me. I've had them come up and just shove me in the back without me seeing them. I've heard them or felt them, but I didn't see them. And sometimes when they want if they want contact, they will show themselves to me. They're not shy. I can describe them. I can have a conversation with them. It's not like sentences long. It's more of the interaction of, I get this symbolism and I get words from them. and I can decipher that. It's not a conversation like we have. It's too many words. They communicate very simply.
Well, so I guess what I really am asking is like it for me. Okay. I have seen at the post office, I saw a little girl. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Who turned out not to be there. Okay. But to me, I saw her it was a little girl who, as I walked back into the post office with 3 or 4 other people in there, she smiled at me and nodded. And when I went to ask, what happened? Because I thought it was the supervisor's daughter. I'm like, where's your daughter? And she goes, there's nobody here. And this girl was literally 2 feet from her. Okay. While she was sitting at her desk. Now, I saw that plain as day. If I hadn't asked and I would have just left and not said anything, I would have thought there was a little girl there. Okay. Now, my ex-wife and I had a business in a old Victorian, I guess, it was a big house. We had a business as an antique shop, and it was a doctor's office. Now, my ex-wife, my ex-mother-in-law, saw the ghost of a little girl running around in the basement. I was there when our dog saw something walking up the stairs and stuff, but I never saw anything. I never saw that in that place. Mm-hmm. So why is it that one place I saw something in another place where many people saw, I didn't see it?
I mean, who really knows? I mean, maybe it was the phase of the moon. Maybe it was the twilight was weird. Who knows what time? Maybe it was a time of day. Maybe it was just a vibration thing, something going on. I don't know why we can see them sometimes and not others. Why were we in the cemetery and only 7 people out of 20 saw that apparition? Nobody else could see it. We were all reacting to it. Oh my God, there it goes, there it is. And the other people were frustrated because they did not see it. So it's a really hard question. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know the answer. That's a good question. That's a good one.
and there was another time when I saw somebody walk into a bathroom in a busy restaurant in Bucyrus that I go, and I walked into the bathroom and there was nobody there. Okay.
Okay. Right. So possibly spirits are trying to get your attention to see if you can see them. It's kind of like just testing you out in a location. They're just trying to see who they mess with you a little bit. They're trying to see who can see them. They get a reaction out of people. So I wouldn't have
known. But my point is like that little girl. If I hadn't asked, I'd have just thought it was a person there. If I hadn't walked into the bathroom, I would have never known there was anybody in there.
Exactly. Interesting stuff, right? I do believe in spirits because I deal with them, and it's a weird gift that I have, but I do have a responsibility to help people because there's a lot of people that are scared. I mean, they get stuff that starts fires or throws knives. I got a video of that house in Parma where it threw a knife across the room. The video something picked it up off the counter. You couldn't see what picked it up, but it threw it. People are not sophisticated enough to do that.
Yeah. You're right.
And some of the evidence we've had, it's just so people are scared, and so it's my responsibility to come over. There's a lot of people who claim they know what to do, and they come and pray in people's houses and do their juju and get their hibachis out and do all that. But there's only a handful in Ohio that are really legitimate, well-known, respected vanishers, and I'm one of them.
So
I'm very busy. Busy.
So, God, we could talk about spirits forever.
Yeah, I'm definitely blessed to be able to see spirits and know spirits. People want me to come to the funerals all the time, and I'm busy. I'm busy. I've got a busy life. I can't just all the time drop what I'm doing to funerals. So I just tell people, I'm sorry, I can't come to funerals. It's too much.
Gosh.
It drains on me too, because sometimes people can be really creepy. Really creepy.
You mean the living or the dead? Which are you talking about? The
dead.
So before we get into some of your Bigfoot stuff, what is the give us one or two of your really creepiest experiences in dealing with somebody that hadn't crossed over.
With having crossed over?
Well, like a ghost.
Like
a ghost. Like you're creepy. Like, what are a couple that just were like, oh, come on, man, you didn't really, come on, leave me alone, or what's really been unsettling.
Okay, so this is something that actually could back up with a book. Will, I think his last name was Kreshe, wrote a book called.
Yeah.
Okay, Will.
I know Will.
Will wrote a book. I'm not supposed to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it only because it is the creepiest thing that ever happened to me.
He'll get over
it. I've been going to the Franklin Castle for a long time, and I used to provoke heavily in front of the house, and then I realized that it really upset the new owner. They had like a new owner. I only did it because I hated the old owner, but the new owner came in, and then I quit provoking, and I quit doing that because I thought it was disrespectful, because I stopped there with my ghost tours. And there's this spirit, they call her the woman in black, and she's been seen. We've got photographs of her, and she finally, when I quit provoking, she came to me and she said what her name was. And I'm not going to tell you her name because I don't want anybody to have power over her. But I then told Will, I go, this is her name. And he said, no, there's nobody. I've researched this whole house. I go, I'm telling you. She said she lived down the street. She came over here to take care of the children. She lived down the street. She's related somehow to this house. And no. So I did this ghost investigation at the Franklin Castle, and I'm not allowed to talk about what happened there. But afterwards, I bought the book, and I came home, and I'm real excited, and I flipped through the book, and in the middle of the book, the first page I opened up, there's a woman in black, and there's her name. And she was the sister of Hans Tiedemann that lived here. So I called Will in the middle of the night, like 4 in the morning, because he said he was up late. I go, Will, I think I just found I found the evidence while I was talking about this. This lady's been telling me, like, who she is. And I finally figured out her name. And he's like, yeah, okay, I'm going to sleep. And I'm just blown away. I'm just blown away that she's been telling me all these years. And I finally figured out who she was. And all she wanted was acknowledgement. And then I reminded her that, the new owners are wonderful people. They're not doing witchcraft or anything. There's no bones hidden. I tried to tell her that nobody's killing anybody here. There's no, nothing crazy going on. They're renovating. They're fixing it up beautiful. Like, she was like really happy to hear that, but she was confused about what was going on in the house. I think she didn't understand what the renovations what they were doing. But it was just a real creepy thing, and it's just one of my life things that, like, wow, I figured out who she was. Like, I finally figured out, but she doesn't want to leave. She's not leaving that castle. There's a couple of other spirits in there that need to also leave and go with her. She's not leaving because there's other ones there, she said.
And so that's somebody that, you've had a conversation with, and she understands, and she's just like, yeah, I don't care. I'm not going.
Right, because there's others that she don't want to leave behind.
Wow.
She's not, there's others that need to, I don't know what's going on, but I do know that the house has a wonderful vibe now. There's not creepy people living in there anymore. It's all good. And I apologize to the current owner if she doesn't like me too much. She caught me provoking, but that was at the time I didn't know it sold, and it was just somebody new there. And I thought it was still that creepy guy that was there. But,
no, we're not talking about Will. Just so everybody knows.
No, not at all. I'm talking about the old owners.
He is a creepy. Will is a creepy guy in some aspects, but not in this story. No,
he's creepy in a good way. And you know what? I don't like, and I will say on the record, I don't like how Ghost Adventurers did him. I don't like how they did. I did not agree with half of this shit that they said or presented, and I think Will was not happy either. But he was on the show with us, and I think he discussed that. Right, Jason? Didn't he discuss that?
Yeah, he did. He was not pleased at all on how they treated him.
Yeah. So that house has been in part of my existence since I was 15. I stole my mom's car when I was 15, and I skipped school. And I went down there with a tape recorder, like a cassette tape recorder. And I got my very first EVP of a child screaming. And it wasn't anybody around. It was like in a cold October day, all the windows were shut, nobody was around on the streets, and I got a EVP of a child crying and screaming. I've been going there my whole life, going there and visiting out front, and that's when I had that experience with that ghost, it was just my mind-blowing moment of my life.
I remember being 15 and being excited when I got a Kirby Puckett rookie card at a baseball card show, and you're like going and getting EVPs, and I'm getting baseball. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't.
I was like the original ghost hunter in Ohio. Here, I'm from Parma.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Gosh, and at the end of the show, we'll let tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and stuff like that. We'll let them do that. But
especially if you have a ghost problem, I can remote view.
Ooh, geez.
I can look in and tell you what's going on.
Oh boy. Well
yeah, like one of you guys is half naked. I just can't decide which one is.
Well, you better listen. I just better hope it's not me, because neither half is pleasant.
Come on, Jason, fess up.
Well, I was a little under the weather.
You got no shirt on? Am I right? Are you got no shirt on? Are you in your shorts?
Yep. And shorts also. Yeah.
Are you almost naked?
I can run outside and not have to worry about it.
Please don't take your shorts. Well, don't take your shorts off, because I can remote view. So stay partly clothed.
I'll just slide under my desk here a little bit.
Hey, and I just and everybody that's listening right now, we're not doing this. We're not doing this over. We are doing it over Skype, but there's no video involved. However,
no, I don't see nothing.
However, if you're listening, I'm just guessing she can remote view through the podcast and see what you're doing right now. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, just give our loyal listening audience something to think about.
Yeah, half of them are picking their nose
and let's see. And I'll bet old Happy. He knows who we're referring to, but old Happy knows he's probably drinking a beer right now, even if it is 9:00 in the morning down in Georgia.
Yeah.
And let's see.
Yeah.
He'll like that. Well, let's talk some Bigfoot.
Let's talk Bigfoot, my favorite subject besides horses and men.
Well, listen, we don't have time for horses and men.
Okay.
That may be another whole podcast.
All right.
So how, because, and we'll get to it at the end of this. Bigfoot is what brought me and you together, Sonya. I mean, this is,
I know, we're having a little, you're like one of my Bigfoot husbands now.
I feel like it. Yes, I feel like it.
We check in with each other and we call it and talking and yeah.
And we have Daniel Perez to thank for that. He's kind of like the Chuck Woolery. He's the Chuck Woolery in this relationship. Yeah. But so how did you how do you go from ghosts to Bigfoot? Do you just I got to take a break from ghosts. I'm going to go out in the woods where there's nothing really crazy going on and how do you get into that?
Well, it started with In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy,
Yes, that was
all that
classic.
stuff on TV, and
he seems to be the Bigfoot crack as far as that. He's like the crack for everybody. And
then I think I remember when the Patterson film came out. I think it later on in the years was on some reel. We would go to the movies and there would be this news reel before the movies, and it showed the Patterson film, Patty walking, and it impressed the heck out of me. But my first encounter was when I was in 15, when I went to a horse camp in Mohican Wilderness in Ohio. That's near Loudonville, Ohio. It's a hot spot there, by the way. And I had an encounter and I got my first footprints. And we had an encounter there. So ever since then, I've been really interested in the Bigfoot phenomena. And I do a lot of camping and hiking. I have horses. I've got my GoPro and my horses to take out. I'm going Gimlin style, And I'm looking for evidence of these. I'd love to get another video eventually, but I've been doing this since I was a little kid. I love it. I'm just like any other Bigfoot nerd. I eat up anything Bigfoot. I love it. So I've gone to all the meetings, all the conferences. I'm involved with the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, and I just love it.
So tell us about your first experience, your first sighting.
Well, my first sighting, was in 2004, and for the life of me, I can't remember what the date was, but it was the first Thursday in October of 2004. I just never went back and looked at the calendar, but it was about 4 in the morning, and it was on the side of the road. And I thought it was a deer. I thought it was a deer waiting for me, and it had red glowing eyes. And the interesting part of my encounter was that I was crying. I was emotionally vomiting all over the car. The man I was dating and in love with, I just found out, was living with his ex-wife still. And it crushed me because I don't mess around with married men or go out with other people's men. You know, I want a single man, you know, and wasted my time. And I was just all upset. How could I not know? And I'm just crying on the way home. And
Jason
and I think that
she found a way to work in a story about a man, even though we said we didn't have time for it. You see it.
Well, it's part of my encounter because I was emotionally vomiting and this thing felt me. I think it felt me. It came to the side of the road to see what was going on. Okay. It was looking down the road at me. It was watching me come down the road. It wasn't turned sideways and in movement. It was standing there waiting for me it was like looking at me. It was facing me. And I thought at first it was a deer getting ready to jump out. And I realized it had big red eyes and was very tall. And I pulled the car to a stop because I thought it was going to jump out in front of the car. It was no less than 20 feet from me. And it turned. And in the headlights, I could see. It turned, and I saw the leg go up, the arm go up, and it had what looked like Irish setter type fur, like stringy hairs coming off his arms and legs, and it just bolted through that field so fast, and it reached the crest of the hill like in seconds and turned around and looked at me again because I had gotten out of the car and was watching it, and it was real dark, but it was huge. We went back the next day, and it had to be measured 7 foot. That night when I got home, I called everybody, Rusty Piles. I called Mark DeWorth. I called Don Keating. I called Paul Mitchell. I called everybody in my book. I called every single person. I think I called Jeff Weingart. I called everybody to tell them that I saw it. And the next day we went out with Paul Mitchell and his father, and we went and knocked on the guy's house. It was a farmhouse. And I said, I saw something cross through your field. I would like, I think it might have been a Sasquatch. I was wondering if I could go check for tracks. And he said, leave those things alone and get off my property. And so I never went back, but we couldn't go back and cast anything or do anything. But it was my very first sighting in 2004, less than 4 miles from my house. I live in Oberlin, Ohio, less than 4 miles from my house.
By the way, Jason, do you know where she lives pretty close to then?
What, in Oberlin, you mean? Yeah. The campground that went to with David Hensley. Yeah. I remember I used to have a farmhouse over there on old Oberlin Elyria Road. Okay,
so Oberlin Elyria Road is my street.
Oh, it is?
That's where I live.
Yeah. I used to live on that street.
Maybe then, okay, we've cleared it up. Maybe you saw Jason again with his shirt off, and he was just standing by the road.
Yeah. And, after I had that sighting, guys, I kept saying over and over, they're real. They're real. It's not a joke. It's real. It's real. I kept thinking to myself, like over and over and over, this is not an elemental. This is not a ghost of something. This is not an alien. This was the vibration of a flesh and blood creature of the earth. It was definitely flesh and blood, big boy, reddish brown.
So the people that so you said you felt like he or she or whatever it was, like felt you. So there's a advanced spirituality to it that sort of like what you have, like,
well, maybe they have, what do they call that radar, that sonic, what do they have it? You call it like what a tiger has or what a bat has. What do they call that?
Sonar.
It's on the tip of my tongue. Not sonic radar. It's, not infra radar. It's, infrasound. Okay. Maybe they have something, something where they can put out, something. He was standing at the side of the road. He felt my energy, felt me. I was really upset. I was really crying, and blasting it out. Maybe because I'm a psychic, I was just sending out the vibration of, I was just getting it all out.
There you go.
And it felt me. And why else would it be standing at the side of the road waiting for me? It was just really interesting. It was waiting for me. And I will tell you that at that intersection there is where parts of the Black River come. And oftentimes that floods and you'll find fish stranded there. And so it's common to find, raccoons and opossums and other animals there. So Bigfoot could have been there after the critters.
So in other words, because a lot of people do claim that they've experienced the infrasound when they encounter a Sasquatch. So in other words, in the woods, they're the big man on the so-called psychic totem pole, and then you come screaming through the woods in your car, belting out like you're, you know what I'm saying? Like you're a rock star, like, I'm upset, and it's going, and it's like, wait a second, what's going, either this is a hot Bigfoot chick of a female coming through upset that I'm going to go talk to. I mean, I'm saying it in a kind of a humorous way, but really, maybe it came down thinking, okay, I can sense this is a female. There's nothing else that I know of that gives off this kind of vibe. I'm going to come down and check it out. And then it sees it's just a regular human in a car. And it's like, crap,
Well, you're projecting. I mean, I don't know what you're projecting or what that theory would be or what you're basing that on, but I just think he just felt me.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Whether he thought I was a Bigfoot or not, I think he just was curious what was going on, that maybe he's never felt a human do that or didn't know what I was doing or what was going on.
That's along the lines I was thinking.
That's what I just said.
No, you said maybe it was a female Sasquatch screaming coming.
Wow. Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is he is out in the woods. The Bigfoot or Sasquatch only experiences other Bigfoot or Sasquatch with that ability.
Oh, no, I think they can feel other animals too.
Oh, you think other animals?
Like a tiger would send out that vibration or,
Don't tell me there's a tiger out in Northeast Ohio in the woods.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's what's... But that's what I'm saying is that maybe this thing was only used to other Sasquatches, and what he heard or felt he thought was another Sasquatch, gets to the edge of the road and discovers, oh, it's just a human. And
well, these Ohio Bigfoots are definitely habituated to our presence. These are not like the Pacific Northwest Bigfoots. The Ohio Bigfoots live among us. They can be found very close to homesteads. Yep. And coming in and raiding gardens and trying to scare off picnickers and trying to grab their food. And I've had a lot of reports. I've done a lot of reports because people know that I'm interested in Bigfoot. So I get my own calls, people calling me that know I'm interested. So I'm not hooked up with the BFRO or the ABBCs or anybody at Bigfoot. I'm just myself. I'm just my own researcher. I do my own thing.
So what was your other sighting that you had?
The other sighting that I had, actually, Finding Bigfoot interviewed for me, and I almost got on the show with it, but they took the guy from the Mohegan Castle instead, the Randall's Castle instead.
I do remember that. I remember that story.
I was hiking with 3 other people down near the Mohegan Dam. And the 3 people, the girl, I can't name their names, they'll get mad, but the girl was kind of ahead of me. The 2 men were kind of hiking way ahead of us. And there's these cliffs. Now, what I noticed before the encounter was that there was these people that had a 2-year-old and like a 3-year-old that were kind of like running around and being loud. And I had the impression of like, well, what if they fell down into one of these crevices or fell into these cliffs? Because these are very hilly, really steep 90-degree cliffs in this dam area. And so maybe the Bigfoot was attracted to the sound of those kids making a lot of noise, but the Bigfoot came over to the edge there. Well, where we were walking, there's a very big, steep drop to the left and a rock wall to the right. And normal people would just walk through there, but I get vertigo. So I had to face the rock wall so I would not see down into that cliff area because I get vertigo and I'd have to crawl out of there, Mm-hmm. So I'm facing the cliff wall, and to get my bearings, I'm looking up at the sky so I can find my way across this this little path here, and I look up, and there's a damn Bigfoot looking down at me on this rock ledge, maybe 20 feet from me, maybe 25 feet from me. I haven't done perfect measurements, but it was a juvenile, and it was looking down. It was crouched down, like it had its arms, like it was bracing itself with its arms, and it was leaning down over looking at me, and its hair on its face hung. It had no hair on its nose, and it's like right under its eyes, had a very prominent brow ridge, and it made a distinct "oh," like its lips went "oh," like I surprised it. It had big muscles in its shoulders. It did not have a pointy head. It was a juvenile. It was smaller. And I remember the hair hanging down, and this one was like a reddish color. And I turned and looked at the girl, and I said, I think I just saw a tree stump. I just saw a tree stump. Oh, my God, I just saw a tree stump. Why do I keep saying tree stump? And she comes running over, and we look up, and it was gone. And then we heard it running. It was like boom, 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 running on the ridge above us, which was a big 90-degree cliff. As I said, I was trying to skirt past there carefully. It did not expect me to be looking up. The two men that were ahead of us turned around and came back for us and said, did you guys hear that thing running? Did you hear something running? We think that was something that was up there running. And then she's like, Sonya just saw it. And then I said, I think I just saw a tree stump. It wants me to think I saw a tree stump. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the day, I kept questioning myself, did I see a tree stump? But there was nothing growing. It was just a big rock ledge. There was nothing growing on that ledge. There was no tree stump there.
So it was like in your head, like messing with you, trying to make you think.
Like it wanted me to think that I saw a tree stump.
Wow, that's okay. That's crazy.
So the other three didn't see it, but they heard it running. And they did see the expression on my face and the bumbling tree stump, tree stump. You know, mm-hmm. Why do I keep saying tree stump? I saw Sasquatch just now. It was looking down at me and not expecting me to look up. But I think it was very attractive to those kids because it's very dangerous back there. Why would somebody let their little kids run around back there? You know, wow. Very dangerous.
Well, before we get into the story that brought us together, I want to ask you something then.
Yeah.
So what do you think Bigfoot is? Is it just an animal, or is it got some more human in it than what we'd like to think, to where it's doing stuff like trying to make you think it looks like a tree stump, or
Well, I'll tell you what I don't think it is. I don't think it's a damn alien. I've never seen one come out of a ship. I don't believe in the woo. I don't believe it's interdimensional, because the only way you're getting out of this dimension is through death. Nothing physical can come through a portal, and you have to be a spirit to come through like a portal, okay? You're not getting through here. It's not one of those. I believe, I've been through all these conferences and listened to all these so-called experts and watched all the shows and read every book. You see my library. I think it's a relic hominid. I think it's a tribe. I think it's a wild man. I don't think it's an ape. I think it's too smart to be an ape. I think it's a man. It's got man-like feet and man-like hands, man-like face.
Yeah, I agree.
What little I know. Okay, I'm right.
And
there
I hate to say it, but I think these dogmen are like handicapped Bigfoots. They're like mean and nasty, and I don't believe that dogmen. I think dogman is a whole complete different species, and that if there's dogmen in an area, there's not Bigfoots there. They're not going to live in the same area.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because the dogmen are probably going to be much more territorial, and the Bigfoots are territorial also, and they just can't risk that kind of conflict.
The dogmen remind me of werewolves or shapeshifters, or I've never seen one, so I don't know. I have no idea. I know I've seen a Bigfoot. I've seen him, and I know I've seen him, and I didn't believe in it, and I didn't really believe until I saw it, because I kept thinking, well, these tracks could have been faked, or people throwing rocks at me, or people throwing stuff at me. Oh, somebody could have been hiding in the woods, or there could have been a squirrel throwing something at me, or I heard something rolling down the hill. That could have been a bear doing that. I hear howls, and I hear this and that. Well, that could have been an elk or a cow with a cough or cold. You know, like I didn't really believe until I saw it. Yeah, there was always an explanation of what it could have been.
So my follow-up then is, what happens when you're out in the woods and you come across a Bigfoot spirit that did not cross over?
Now there's a good one.
Well, I mean,
did anybody read Tom Powell's book? Any of Tom Powell's books?
No, I did not.
No.
Okay.
Sounds like we're missing
out on something. He has a story about a ghost in there.
Oh, okay. A Bigfoot ghost?
You guys read that, but he has a small chapter about Bigfoot ghosts, and I was actually part of that story, but he didn't include my part in that story. I know somebody who disturbed a Bigfoot grave, and he was haunted by it.
Oh, my.
Yes, and this happened in 1995, and I'll never forget it. And they made me trek all the way in the middle of nowhere. It was like the longest hike I've ever had. I'm an older woman, you know, and the middle of summer with heart disease and everything else. I'm like trekking through this big swamp and getting there. It took like all day to get there. No complaining, but wow, it was in the middle of nowhere, literally. And they disturbed this big cairn. It was a huge cairn of rocks, and it wasn't like at the edge of a farmer's field or some weird foundation. It was part of a park in the middle of this park system where all this land had been set aside. And they started digging up these rocks. Well, then there was a haunting, and this Bigfoot spirit was tormenting him. So I had to go, and they said, well, can you come do your juju or come seal the grave or do the funeral graves and come say we're sorry. So we came and did tobacco ceremony, and then I planted some corn, and I did this whole sealing back of it, like what you do with a disturbed grave. You would come back and make it all better and put a Band-Aid on it and say, I'm sorry. Please don't haunt us. You know, and then it all ended. It was all good. But yeah, I think if it's real, there could be a possible grave of something down there. I don't know what's down there, but supposedly a Bigfoot. But yeah, I didn't see it. I didn't see the body. I just saw the big pile of rocks. And my friend was haunted by this thing.
And it wasn't an instance where you like had contact with the spirit or anything.
No, I will not claim that I've come across a Bigfoot ghost. Okay. I just know that I was involved with somebody who had a grave. They disturbed what possibly could have been a grave, an alleged grave. And I had to come help him because he was having nightmares and visitations by a Bigfoot ghost. And he was told to go put it all back.
Wow.
Put it all back the way he found it. And so we had to do, so I know some ceremonies. When you disturb a grave, I know some ceremonies to do. I'm kind of like a chaos magician. They talk about that sometimes in the ghost shows. It's another label. People have also said that I'm like a chaos magician. I can put back what was messed up, what was screwed up, you know.
Wow.
Like people do weird things in a house with a Ouija board, or they do things and I can fix it back up. If there's been black magic done somewhere, I can undo it. There's been a grave that's been disturbed. I know how to fix it, that kind of thing.
Good.
So that's why I got involved.
Wow, that's
how we met. This conversation, we were going to talk about how we met.
Yes. Yeah.
So I go to these Bigfoot meetings, and I met this guy named Mark Vasitis at a Bigfoot meeting in Newcomerstown when Don Keating had his meetings at the hotel there. And I'm pretty regular, you know, since the late 90s going to see Don's meetings, and then eventually it ended up being Mark DeWorth took over the conferences, and I would always bump into this Mark Vasitis, and we would talk, and he could talk your ear off too. If you would listen, he would tell you about all his encounters. And Mark would not be involved with groups, like he didn't join the BFRO or any of the other groups. He just would show up at the meetings, and so I'd bump into him, and so he got to know me. And what happened was Mark had gotten a call from a park system who was looking for a Bigfoot researcher, and somehow his name came up in the internet that he lived nearby, and they wanted him to come in and maybe do some so-called wildlife studies because they think they had a Bigfoot problem in the park, but they're not allowed to talk about it, so they called it a wildlife problem. So they gave him a permission slip to be in the park after dark, and I did see that permission slip. He showed it to me, and it looked legitimate. And why he was there was that there was several people complained that a Bigfoot chased them out of the park. And the guy that cuts the grass and the riding lawnmower also was harassed by Bigfoot. He had to jump off the lawnmower and run. And several people have complained, so they asked Mark Besitis, would you go in? So he got a camera, and he set it up, and lo and behold, he got a video of a Bigfoot. And actually got a bit of two Bigfoots. One looked like Sonic the Hedgehog, and the other was an adult that walked right towards the camera, right past it. I saw the foot and everything, the whole thing. And the reason why he called me about the video was he knew that I had been doing this really bad B movie with Pat Holbrook. And the Bigfoot movie was called One Step Beyond Reality, the Bigfoot movie. And that's what it was. And I got to be in that part of that movie. So he knew I was currently working with this producer and cameramen and people and all this. So he wondered if anybody had any recording equipment, because he had a video of a Bigfoot he wanted to preserve. And he wondered, I was like, what? He goes, can you come out and help me? Can you come check this out? So I took my friend Coyote with me because I don't go to strange men's house by myself. I know better. And he took us out to Hell's Hollow and showed us around and showed us the paper and told us the story. And we found 17-inch tracks that were 4 foot apart. I remember, I don't have the notes in front of me, but I remember they were about 4 foot apart, 17-inch tracks that led to a drop in a cliff. There was a tree there that looked like it had been regularly hung or something rubbed against it. I collected a hair. Collected a can that had weird squared teeth marks on it. And then he showed us where he set up the camera, which was on a little mound of dirt next to a dirt trail. So with this evidence that I collected, we went off to his house. And at his house, he set up, he had this, we saw it through the viewfinder, the camera. It was a little recorder, And the first thing that I see, it looks like Sonic the Hedgehog running from the right side of the screen to the left. And it went so fast, I can't decide whether it was on 2 feet or 4 feet, but it was short. It was about the same height as the foliage, and it had its face tipped up. And out behind it streamed its hair. It looked like spiky hair. Like as it ran, it had its face up in the air. And it looked like Sonic the Hedgehog. It was so fast. And then all you see is just the foliage shaking because this thing just went past the foliage, everything's shaking. Then all of a sudden you see on the trail this Bigfoot walking towards the camera, looking past the camera. What was past the camera was a little picnic area that had garbage cans. So I think it was intent on looking past to see if that little one maybe got there first, or maybe there was others over there, but it was real intent on what was past the camera. It never looked down. It never noticed the camera. It walked right past it, almost stepped on it. And I saw it like very clearly. It had a pronounced brow ridge. Eyes were deep set. It had very, very strong shoulders. You can see all the muscle definition. There was no pointy head. And it was just ripped. The muscles were ripped, and you could just see hair, the outline of hair on the body. Now, it was a really tiny little camera. It was like green, like an infrared green, like an infragreen screen. And it was small, maybe, like a 3-inch viewfinder. It was tiny, but I couldn't believe it. And then I showed Coyote. We both saw it a couple times, and he goes, now what do I do? And I'm like, well, we got to take this to Dodd's camera or take it to Drug Mart or somewhere, and don't leave. Stand right there while they process it. Take this right off and put it, or go to a computer place or somewhere. And apparently he did not. He told me that he had the other guys at the trailer park, they borrowed VCRs and other cameras, and they hooked them all up and it erased it, he said.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, man.
And the hair that I collected, and the can that I collected, which, by the way, I do have a Bigfoot DNA kit with sterile tweezers and sterile gloves and sterile Ziplocs, and it's all sterile stuff, for evidence collecting. And I collected that hair, which had no cut end, and it had like a bulb at the bottom, like a root end, and it had no cut at the other end. It was a whole intact hair. And the can, and I took it to the Bigfoot conference in 2006 and presented it to Esteban, who didn't really take care of it, and you set it on the table, and somebody threw it away, or the cleaning lady threw it away. It was just lost evidence.
Oh,
wow.
my.
And you know, so that's been an interesting. So that story was one that was almost unbelievable. I mean, it was almost unbelievable. Because you know, our mutual friend Daniel Perez heard heard that story at this year's Bigfoot conference and wrote about it, and that's kind of what led us to get. Because I get Bigfoot news. You know, I get the newsletter, and I read it. I'm like, wait a second, I've never heard of this guy. And so the search was on to find Mark, and so after this episode airs, we're going to air an episode that we had with Mark, and and just like you said, once he gets telling the stories, there's no stopping him. And I think everybody. Yeah,
you have to be patient with him. Yeah, be patient with him. And I could say that I don't really know him. I'm just acquainted with him. So me and Coyote see this video and we're blown away. We were just, wow. It was better than the Patterson film. It walked right up to the camera, walked right past it. There was a little dirt mound next to the game trail there. And the foliage in June was not completely dense and filled up by the first week of June there. It wasn't completely grown up all the way like you would think. So you could see it. It had a clear path. It was very clear. It's just sickening that he lost it.
Oh, boy.
He wasn't patient. The guys, he wasn't patient. My suggestion to him was, I didn't really want you to take it to Pat Holbrook. I didn't think he was the right person at the time to share it with. I was thinking there was other people that were better than him, like, I was suggesting Meldrum or, anybody other than a TV producer or, a film producer. No offense to you guys, but at the time, in 2004, I didn't really know anybody. At 2004 or 2005, I didn't know anybody. Yeah. Who did I know? I was just getting into all this, getting to know everybody. But Mark is what the strange thing was is after we saw that video, he disappeared. Mark Bigfootsitis disappeared. He was gone. No more phone. He wouldn't answer the phone calls. He actually up and moved. We had like this whole conspiracy theory going on that the government got a hold of him, and they got a hold of him, and he's dead or he's confined to Guantanamo or who knows. But he just laid low. Once I think he's typical of some people who get the evidence, they got their evidence, and now they go quiet. And I think that's what happened to him. It blew his mind. He went quiet.
Well, and we did find out that he had some personal stuff go on that kind of took his focus away from Bigfooting, which we could tell from talking to him, he's consumed by it. Now that he's back into it, he's consumed by it. So, I'm definitely going to hang out with him. I did get a chance to talk to him briefly, but he said he was somewhere and he didn't have much minutes left. But I've been having a texting conversation with him, and you got to understand, I'm busy in my life, and I have to try to make time to talk to him because between what I've got to do and my horses and my work and all the things that I have to do, I'm like still working, and he's not. So I have to find time to go Bigfooting. Unfortunately, I have to plan it. But I plan on getting together with him and go revisit Hell's Hollow, and of course bring a friend with me. Not just a sidearm. I mean, like bring somebody else with me. Go out with him again. Well, I'll be super curious to see, because he has some great stories, and I'm not going to ruin it for anybody that's going to listen to his episode. But he has some fantastic stories. It sounds like he's in a spot now where he's really experiencing a lot of stuff, and I think that's what we would do. We get together, like him and I would get together, and we would just talk about the things that happened in the woods, and I would talk about the wood knocks, and the truth is I have a couple hot spots that I go visit every year,
And around the same time, September, early October, I go to an area near the Chagrin River, Ohio. I have a family who have a property that's up against the Chagrin River, and they have, I don't want to say a herd of Bigfoots, but it feels like a family back there that regularly visits and comes through there that time of year. And I've been camping there since 2008. I've been camping in this area every year, and every year stuff happens. Now, when we have cameras and guns and video and dash cams and recorders, nothing happens. If we pack all the equipment away in the trunk, in the car, everything's turned off, stuff happens. It's truth.
Wow.
I swear they know. I swear they know.
Well, that would go into their level of intelligence being a lot more than just an ape running around out there.
And one of his hot spots, one of Mark's hot spots, is very close to one of my hot spots, and I think it might be the same set of Bigfoots. So me and him might be researching the same families and finding stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think
the descriptions are the descriptions that he's given me, because he's given me like some emails, or not emails. He did send me a video of one walking, which I don't have a computer. I have to borrow one. Yeah, I know, shame on me. Mine blew up in a storm, so I have to go get a computer. And I need to go look at that video he sent me, but he's also sending me other pictures and structures and this and that. We're sharing information. I'm sharing what I've gotten. He's sharing what he's gotten, and we're getting back in touch. I doubt that he's going to go to any of the meetings again. He said most of his Bigfoot buddies have died. And now we're getting together, and I'm going to keep in touch with him and go back out in the woods with him, of course, with a friend in tow. But, he is a little different, but I believe him. I believe he's having experiences. After I saw that video, I believe him. He's out in the woods.
I tell you what, I'm glad that you saw that video. I mean, really am. Because it would be, like I said, if there wasn't other people there, and like I said, I know people who know Coyote, too, and that he's a reputable guy, and that you're reputable. And the fact that you guys saw it, and not to give anything away, but we really didn't even get into the video much in our conversation with Mark, and the stuff he told us blew us away. So I'm glad that you were able to tell this story for all of our listeners, and I'm thankful.
And I intend to hang out with him.
I'm thankful that Daniel put it in the newsletter. Like, he did a lot of research and in interviews to get it into the newsletter. But it's all important. It's all very important to get it out there and share these experiences. And it would be awesome to have that tape and see that.
Well, I will tell you, the highlight of my year was going out around Salt Fork with Daniel Perez in my truck, and taking him all around the Salt Fork area and showing him all the hot spots, and just spending time in the field with him and going out Bigfooting with him and just talking Bigfoot the whole time. And then it was the joke. We come back and they're asking Dan, did Sonya molest you? Are you okay? Like, teasing him, like, no, it's all about Bigfoot. Like, no, she didn't do anything. She's harmless. Like, but I think that was the highlight of my year, was actually going out around with, at the Bigfoot conference. He kind of buddied up with me, and I took him around, and I really enjoyed that. Anytime I get to spend time with anybody out in the field is fun, because truth is, I go out by myself a lot. I have the dash cam going. I have my GoPro on. I have my cameras ready. I've got digital recorders ready. I got everything ready just in case, I come across something. And I probably go out in the field more than most women do. I mean, I'm an avid researcher. I love going out. I love getting out there. I'm always press report. I'm the first one there.
I hope that Daniel is not questioning his manhood now, since you didn't molest him.
No, it's a joke.
Okay.
Now wait a minute. We don't want to embarrass him, because he actually is a gentleman.
Yes.
And I do like the way he thinks. He's very scientific minded, and he's really smart. He's got a good brain on him. He's very, very intelligent. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed his presentation. And he called it, it's not rocket scientist. I helped him like flip the buttons and helped him with his computer and helped him during his presentation. But he's fascinating. He's got quite the library of evidence there going.
Yeah, and that's the best thing about this podcast is getting to meet like all you guys and becoming friends with you guys and exchanging information and kind of I mean, every day I'm getting something from somebody that has been on the show or I've met through the show that, since we've been recording this, I've been getting trail cam photos from a gentleman in Arkansas who's got something going on his property. And I don't know what we'll get out of that, but I mean, it's just people have stuff happening and they want to talk about it. And they want to share it so they don't think they're crazy.
They share with me. I get shared with all the time. I've got a picture of the Ridgewalker from Oklahoma. The Ridgewalker of Hanobia when all that was going on, when BFRO had to come down, when the Bigfoots were attacking that one cabin, and they've got a picture. They've got a video of it walking down the ridge. I got a copy of that. Guy sent it to me. I get all kinds of stuff. I used to. Not hang out, but I did go down and visit with Mary Green one time from Tennessee, Bigfoot lady, and hung out with her. And we had enough experiences where she actually wrote in the book. She wrote me in her second book the experiences that we had, and so I'm into it. I love getting out there with everybody who wants to go Bigfoot, and I'm into it. Let's go. You know how to ride a horse? I'll bring an extra one.
Well, I've got my own. I guess we could bring, but.
Well, if anybody's in Ohio and needs help with a ghost and wants to talk about spirits or does need help, I am available. I'm happy to give out my information if you guys want to.
Yeah,
please go ahead. Yes,
give it out, and then we'll put it out on our social media when we air the episode.
Okay, great. Sure. Okay, great. So my phone number is 440-775-1217. And there's no texting there. That's just a landline. Leave me a message. And my website is ghosttours.withpsychicsonya.com. And I'm also on Facebook, Sonya Horstman. Hit me up with a friend request. I'd be happy to keep in touch. And, if anybody needs help with a ghost, I'm the one to call. It's free to talk to me over the phone.
I would say, hey, after talking to you, I would say you're the only person to call. And
thanks.
First of all, I'm so thankful that Daniel Perez brought us together. And I'm so glad that you were able to basically rescue us tonight because our original guest had an emergency. And this is the best. This is one of the best interviews I think we've done in a while, Jason. Don't you?
This has been great.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Well, thank you. I got out of cooking dinner, so thanks.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Well, if you ever want to talk about UFO, you ever got a UFO show, I have a video to share with you guys from Salt Fork that I took last year on July 15th.
Oh, here we go.
Yes,
okay,
get her scheduled in. We got to do that.
I have, and it's only a little like a quick blip of it, but I did catch it. There's 4 of us together, and I do love UFOs, but UFOs make me nervous. I don't want to be taken by one, but I'm fascinated by the subject. But yeah, I saw one in Salt Fork. That is a hot spot. Boy, they're seen there quite regularly.
Yeah.
And I finally got to see one, and I got it on video, so I can say, yes, I saw it. Here's the video to prove it.
Nice.
Holy smokes. See,
crazy.
There's a whole nother episode. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a whole nother thing. UFOs. Yes. I'm into the paranormal, I love to talk about it. The paranormal is my life. And then the other side of my life, I'm a normal grandma. I have horses. I have a little homestead. I have a garden, a man to take care of, and a normal house. And I have a normal life that way. But the other side of me is I'm real deep into the paranormal. I love it. It's my life. Very interested in it.
Well, I appreciate you taking some time and sharing it with everybody tonight because
Thank you.
Indeed.
Thank you.
If people don't like this episode, then you better go listen to somebody else. That's all I can say.
All right. And if you guys want to see what I look like, I also did make it on TV. Can I brag a little?
Sure.
I made it on History Channel 2. There was a series called Haunted History. And the Cleveland episode was about the torso murderer, and I was featured in that episode. I made my TV debut.
We'll definitely look that one up. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, lots of B movies and lots of those kind of things I've done in documentaries and B movies, but that was my first like real good Hollywood one that I made.
Well,
the episode was about the Torso murder, and again, the episode was called Haunted History. So check it out.
Yeah.
I hope everybody checks it out. I hope everybody goes and checks you out on Facebook, and if you do have some problems, give her a call because I think she's the one to solve them. So
I'm happy to help out.
Well, Sonya, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Shane, I hope. Yeah, it's nice to meet you, Jason. And Shane, if you are in Ohio, up here in Northern Ohio, we could hang. Give me a call.
Oh, yeah, we will. Yeah. Jason's in Mansfield. So,
okay.
We'll throw a shirt on him and we'll come up sometime and maybe hang out with you and Mark.
The only way you're coming is with if he wants to bring a loincloth, I'm not going to object. But I really would prefer the shirt on.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sonya. We'll definitely stay in touch. All right.
Yeah, all right. Thanks. God bless everybody.
Yes,
thanks for having me.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Have a good one. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time. Never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.